Hi, everybody. Karen Roby here for ZDNet and Tech Republic. Talking today with Max Kalehoff. He's the VP of Marketing for Realeyes. And Max, I appreciate you being here with us today, as we're both obviously in our homes and adjusting to the new way of working. One of the big things I think we're all dealing with is our emotions right now, right? We're all over the board in terms of if we're sad or mad or upset. And you guys have do some really interesting work, and it's really important work right now. So just start with a little bit about Realize the work you do, and then we'll kind of go from there.
Sure. Well, Realize is a computer vision and emotion AI company. And what we do is measure the naturally recurring response of people as they view ads or participate in mobile streaming applications. If it's okay, I'll give you a quick demo to show you actually how the tech works. I'll share my screen and pull that up just for a second before we go into the interview. But what we have here What we have here is actually a live demo. And what you're seeing is the detection of my emotion and my attention, particularly happiness. So there's about 7 major emotions that we monitor: confusion, contempt, fear, empathy, disgust, surprise, and happy. So what we're looking here is in tandem is my attention and my happiness as observed by my facial cues. So we measure opt-in consumers as they view video or participate in apps. And the really useful thing for companies that use this technology is it gives them a very accurate biometrical reading of people. Sometimes surveys are not always accurate, and especially in a time of high anxiety and uncertainty in the world, it's more questionable than ever if people are going to respond to surveys as accurately. But biometrics don't lie, and another interesting thing is that we can virtually come into anyone's home. So when someone opts in, we can perform a motion detection through a phone, a mobile phone, or a tablet, or a PC. So it's very agile, and in this age of eyes on screen all the time and cameras turned on, it's sort of our moment.
So when you guys are measuring what people are feeling as they're looking specifically right now at ads, what are you all finding?
So we regularly monitor consumers' emotion and attention response to ads, and we do this for hundreds of brands and publishers and tech platforms. And we took a hard look at what was happening around COVID, as we're all experiencing, this pandemic, and all experiencing it in a different way. But to frame up our study, what we did is we looked at the emotions that were occurring in response to ads starting around February 25th up until late last week. And what we found is that the big surprise was that smiles had decreased 32% in response to corporate brand advertising versus a year ago. So, at first we said, is there something wrong? Like, is something wrong with the methodology or the technology? And we went and then, we validated, and nope, the numbers look good. I mean, everything's sound. We had our data science and research groups take a look, and things are stable as far as the emotion detection. But what has really changed is consumer sentiment has changed. And if you look at overall across the whole universe of ads, that they're just drawing less smiles. But there is a more nuanced story to that, and it may not be surprising, but it's also important to confirm it. And if you look at some of the categories that experienced the sharpest decline in smiles, it was tourism, hospitality type companies, and other sorts of categories which you might call non-essential goods, such as gadgets and consumer electronics, luxury purchases. So what that indicates is that there's a more somber mode, a more somber tone, and that if your goal as a brand is to try to make people really happy, you might have certain barriers, and you need to take that into account to connect with them in the right way. And it also the findings mirrored a study that we also did last week around the automotive category. The automotive category was interesting because that was the first category that came out in full with a response to COVID-19. They weren't the only category, but they were the first big category to really come out because it's their job to get people in dealerships every week to buy cars. And we did a comparative study. It included Ford, it included Hyundai, Toyota, GM, Cadillac, Buick, and what we found is that the Ford ad really stood out, and we can provide some links to those ads. But the Ford ad really expressed some key themes, such as iconic imagery, black and white, a lack of a voiceover, talking about ingenuity and survival through wars in over 100 years. And the big thing missing from their ad was pitching people with product. They didn't pitch product, they didn't pitch feeds and speeds. If you looked at all the other ads from almost all the other manufacturers, they were all pitching their onboard Wi-Fi or their OnStar, capability or financing, so you can go buy a car tomorrow. But what that comparative analysis told us in the car industry is that people don't want to be sold products to now. They do want to hear from brands that represent strength, continuity, comfort, confidence. People are very much looking and deferring to institutions that do that in this period. And so it really, it underscored an underlying psychology of society, at least here in the United States, where our study was focused on, is that number one, we're in a psychological phase of security and safety. Nobody cares about much except ensuring the safety of themselves and their families. And then once we get a hold on this COVID, we're likely to move into the second stage, which is processing and making sense, making meaning of what's happening. And then what we'll see further along is then we'll get back to normal, the new normal, and start, pitching products and doing business again. And if you look at other countries, you've seen them progress through these stages. So some of the Asian countries like South Korea or Japan, where we're also doing a great amount of testing and doing business, we actually see a sort of, they're further along in the life cycle of kind of embracing and adapting to a way of life in this evolving new normal.
Right. And so companies need to obviously exercise emotional intelligence here. They need to be in touch with what people are feeling, how we all are. And real quick before we take off here, Max, you guys talk just a little bit about the tech end of this, from the way that you all do this. Artificial intelligence is being used. Talk a little bit about the tech behind the tech.
Sure. Well, basically what we've done is we've taken a discipline in psychology called facial coding that was pioneered by a famous psychologist named Paul Ekman. And he pioneered the technique of observing facial cues to detect emotions. So it's something that's actually had been used for some time in the 70s and 80s. And what we did is we trained machines and front-facing cameras on devices like laptops and mobile cameras, mobile phones, tablets, or kiosks to be able to detect those emotions. So it's a very small piece of software that it doesn't interrupt the experience. It's only opt-in, so we don't do surveillance, we don't do tracking of identity. So it's purely looking for presence of a human and then detecting the emotion. And so to date, we've developed the largest AI training set in the world that we know of around emotion labeling. So we've labeled roughly 620 million frames of content mapped against emotion. And so again, to our knowledge, it's the largest, and we're particularly focused on building tools for marketers and consumer brands. But that's the core of the technology. And then the really exciting part is that we are amidst the rollout of the next generation of this technology. So we've invested an incredible amount to enhance the accuracy and also to be able to and make the technology compatible with other cultures in regions and races. So, for example, Asian people have slightly different expressions as an average Caucasian person. So there's nuances to that, and to make this accurate and practical for real world utility, you have to be able to build up your training sets and evolve the technology to compensate and embrace different backgrounds and different peoples.
Very interesting. All right, very good, Max. We certainly appreciate you being here with us today to talk a little bit about this. Some really interesting findings, of course, as we're amidst this very odd time that we're all living through right now. So again, thank you for being here with us today, and we'll have much more, of course, on this on ZDNet and Tech Republic. Thanks for watching, everybody.